The ego is the system that runs your sense of self. It is made out of thought patterns, emotions, and behavioral loops, and the stories that try to hold it all together. Left unchecked, it creates endless existential searching, chronic disconnection, and the persistent sense that something is wrong. The goal of my videos is clarity, to see your identity and its contradictions for what they are, named precisely, to finally understand what it is that we're all running away from. There are many spiritual YouTube channels that are trying to feed your ego. They do this by talking to you about manifesting and then fueling personal narratives around manifesting, or they are telling you that you are a chosen one. Why does the ego like to be a chosen one? This feeling that something about you is special. If you were chosen by the universe, then all the narratives of the ego are true. All the stories that you have in your head matter and are not delusion and fantasy. But then who has chosen you? Why do you feel the need to be chosen by an external force in the first place? Why is your own choice not enough? It shows that everyone who feels this need to be chosen by something else implies that you are not enough for yourself. You need the validation from a god, a romantic partner, or an online guru to tell you that your spiritual insight is extraordinary and it is going to change the world or change your life. Fueling this sort of energy is a disservice for people. It uses other people's delusions in order to generate attention and views and make others feel special. You are not special. You're not more or less human than anybody else on this planet. If you think this way, like that you are special and have like some unique spiritual insight, then you are likely overshadowed by personal narratives of grandiosity. And I'm saying this as somebody who has building a community that teaches people how to apply analytical enlightenment for real life power. So look at who's talking to you. When I was unstable, I used to think that synchronicities is the way the universe is speaking to me. And honestly, I didn't even use the word synchronicities. It's just the feeling that I had. And these were odd coincidences that aligned with my destabilized self. For example, I fantasized about an upcoming mushroom trip in my head. And I was very nervous for weeks. This was probably 2022. And I was pretty nervous because I had a very, very bad experience like a year before that. And I respected the substance way more, and it felt like this like spiritual journey. And in the weeks waiting for the trip, I was fantasizing about how it is going to be like. And my entire days had like this feeling of the universe is guiding me towards that trip and giving me signs and how to engage with my life and the world. And there were like these specific sensations, more so than a story that I could clearly tell you or a precise example that I can give. It was more like a vibe that constantly something is guiding me or something is with me or watching me. And when the trip came, it was very bad. Like not bad trip bad, but very disappointing and very anti-spiritual. Very much like, oh yeah, I'm a physical, biological body that just took a substance and now I'm seeing things weirdly. And it wasn't at all how I imagined it to be. And I also had some like fights with the person I was. Like it was kind of a mess. So this really was not at all how my like ego imagined it to be. And then I noticed, wait, all these narratives I had in my head about my spiritual journey or this sort of feeling that I'm chosen for something special and that I'm guided by some sort of light. Well, this all was pretty delulu. It wasn't true. It was completely made up by my mind, and it felt very important and real. It felt like I was accessing something very profound and deep. And now I was thinking, okay, so it was all just in my own psyche. It was all psychological fantasy. And here you can see how dangerous this is once you get attached to these phases of ego dissolution, because this is what really causes the sense of destabilization. You have a sense of self that gets dissolved into your daily life or experiences, But instead of just letting this dissolution happen into its own, in its own way, there's so many emotions at play that cause you to want to build a narrative and make sense of things, especially if these emotions are very intense. Then just letting it be like physics, or letting it be like a thermodynamic system where your energy has to basically recalibrate. The ego doesn't like that, because it doesn't make him feel important. It doesn't make it feel like there's something very meaningful going on, because these experiences feel so meaningful. Like if you have a awakening or spiritual dissolution experience, it feels very important to you, because it's you who is disappearing or changing or shifting. I felt like I was in a sort of dream while I was sober, and it is exactly this that I would categorize as being a bit unstable. But unstable here doesn't mean that something's going wrong. It is part of the process. But from there usually are a lot of ego narratives that corrupt the processing of all of these feelings. If you think about something and then coincidentally see that what you have been thinking about, what is often the feeling of synchronicity, like very odd coincidences that feels like, oh wow, the universe is talking to me or wanting to make a point, then the tendency to create meaning out of these coincidences is way more natural for the human ego minds than to say it's just a coincidence. And I learned this over a lot of time to notice, okay, that's a cool coincidence, or this feels like a little bit like something the universe is saying to me, and I can humor it a little bit, but I'm not so, I actually don't believe it. I'm very agnostic about it. It doesn't affect me anymore. I can see now how easy it is for the mind to take coincidences and make it super important, and it likely isn't. So I found that the problem that my way of thinking about these existential or spiritual topics had was that it was always about me and my personal narrative. Like the universe or God is personally communicating to me because I am more important than maybe the entire universe around me, because maybe the entire universe around me is like a dream and I am the only real person alive. And there we go into like very weird territory. And I don't say that that's exactly how I thought, but it goes into this direction of being like, oh, I am the star of the show. I am the universe. I am God. And this sense is so visceral that you can't easily ignore that, especially if it is feeding your ego in terms of giving you ideas that you like. Then this feeling of, oh, I like that, overshadows any sort of skepticism. The mind is a meaning-making machine, and it will, in the snap of a second, convince you that the meaning it creates is true, and it can't be empty, or it can't be just like a sort of mechanism of the brain. And it is actually quite disappointing if you believe that everything is super like profound and spiritual, and then, oh no, this was just chemics. This was just chemistry. This was just your dopamine reward system. This was just your biological body doing what biological bodies do. It disconnects you from all this fantasy that you have had in your head, where you manufacture a certain reality for the future. It robs all this identity away from its magic, and it feels very disappointing. It's like the disappointment that you can also get if you believe yourself to be some sort of awakened special person, and then no, you're actually not that special. You're manufacturing realities so that you can cling to this fantasy of the thing. I go deeper into precisely this idea in this video that I made a few days back. If you are a theist or a Christian watching this, then you might feel like what I say is an unfair representation of a very normal, healthy relationship with God. Like if you are like believing in a God in a almost like personalized way, where you talk to Jesus, or you talk to Allah, or you talk to Vishnu, like whoever it is, then the entire life is kind of constructed in this way, where you have this ego narrative in your head about some sort of spiritual journey that God is putting you on. And from this point of view, what I'm saying might sound very dismissive, that it seems like I'm making something quite natural for you sound crazy. But I want to draw a distinction here, because feeling that you're communicating to some higher force and becoming deluded by personal ego narratives isn't the same. Like, there might overlap, especially if you are like a hardcore atheist, you would say this is 100% the same. But there are important distinctions you can draw, because in one version, you become attached to your own reality model. Oh, my light went off. Well, not all feelings of communicating with some like higher force are created equal. If you have never talked to people who are in God delusions, it makes sense that, yeah, you would think it's just all kind of like the same, right? You're just believing in a sort of deity and it helps you and stuff. But there are plenty of people who, for who finding God made their life worse, because it gives an excuse for their ego to take everything they perceive as God's gospel, because it inflates their sense of self-importance, their sense of everything is about me. And underneath, there's just this uncertainty that is full of, yeah, a sort of victimized sense of self and a low sense of self-esteem. And this God idea is this override that becomes like this feeling of grandiosity again, of being chosen by something external that is supposed to like clean out the broken parts of you, when, yeah, this externalization is kind of like an externalization of your own ego. And the feeling of like the like, let's say a standard Christian talking about God or having a relationship with God, it always acts as a sort of ego reduction for like a healthy mind. So then devoting yourself to God, it doesn't become like this thing that tries to, yeah, inflate or like cover up something for you, but it humbles you. And in this humbling process, you become one with consciousness, one with experience, one with reality. And in this way, then this belief of God, it doesn't really fuel an egoic narrative, as it more, yeah, reduces the friction that you have, because it reduces your sense of self-importance. You feel like you're part of something larger. You're being guided by a force that is trying to help you. It helps you to surrender to, yeah, the impermanence of existence and the destiny of your life. And in this sense, I wouldn't call it all just an egoic delusion just because you have like a sort of fantasy over like a higher power. But where you lie in that really depends on you as a person. And you also don't need to believe in God as like a being itself, right? You can call it the universe and still have like very strong ego narratives around it, or use the universe as a concept to dissolve your sense of self. The real wound that wants to be mended in all of these circumstances, when you're like want to be chosen and have like a successful manifested life, is always the lack of self-love. People who are looking for enlightenment and existential satisfaction are really looking for a way to love themselves. And God is often the entity that brings the sense of self-love. But at the end of the day, what you want to do is you want to choose yourself, to take existence for how it is and be okay with it. And not just sort of, yeah, I'm okay with everything and everything is just fine, trying to like force yourself into sort of acceptance that is not there. But it's choice that is much more about being honest with yourself, about being honest with how the world is like. So you don't need an external force to validate this choice. If it helps you, then awesome, right? but you don't need the belief in something external, because everything that is true is already within you. If you have a goal in your life to become more powerful, then being chosen for this task is something you do to yourself. It is believing you are deserving of the richness of life. If you have the goal in your life to make significant changes to the world, then this is something that you choose for yourself. It is believing that you can make big changes over time and go for it. The belief of the chosen one is a fight against uncertainty. To know that it all will be fine because it already has been chosen, written by the universe. This is where this sort of manifesting idea comes from. And to some extent, this sort of future vision can be helpful. You might have to be at least a bit delusional to truly become great. I mean, it took a lot of delusional thinking, or at least it seemed like delusional thinking, for me to make this YouTube channel. And do all of this work that I'm doing right now. I'm doing this for 3.5 years now, and just this year, things are really starting to, pop off for me. But what's funny is, looking back, it was always the limiting beliefs that I had that were the real delusion. Like, believing that what I'm doing right now is unrealistic was the delusion. This is what was untrue. It was realistic. And in the same way, you imagining that one day you could sell a company for $10 million, or saving millions of people's lives, or creating the most beautiful music that you've ever listened to, all of this stuff is realistic. This stuff happens. This stuff exists. The question that you must ask yourself is this realistic for me? Can I do this? And this is where the ego comes in the way and says, I don't think I can, or, oh, I do think I can. And then it often grasps onto some external being that chooses it for you, and therefore you can do it. But it's not necessary. All you need to do is to look at yourself and recognize that you are a human, and humans do marvelous things. The delusion is to think that you're not good enough, and that you need external approval or another being to take your goals seriously. You're already enough. You don't need to prove anything to anybody. And you also don't need to accomplish your goals in order to be happy. People always want to understand how to bridge ambition with ego dissolution as if they are opposite forces. But you do not need to choose between ambition and existential peace. You can have your cake and eat it too. All you need to do is to set the fantasies aside and get to work. And if you want to supercharge that work, then check out my Ego Architecture audit in the link in the description. And if you want to be part of a community that will, facilitate this mindset, let's say, to use a very calm word. If you want a community that facilitates this mindset, then check out my Substack, because I will make an announcement there, and the space will be limited. So people on Substack will know about it before others. Peace out.